this week is everybody's been all too kind, but let me assure you, thank you from the bottom of my heart, but also you are looking at the most uncomfortable person in the world right now. For 21 years, I've avoided two things. One, the top center podium at a Texas REALTORS Board of Directors meeting. And the other, giving a speech that is focused on me. But here I am, and these two forces have come together. The good news is, for those of you who know me well, you know about my wardrobe malfunctions and my fashion faux pas. They're very well documented when I get dressed while nervous. But today I'm standing before you and I've double checked 3 times. My zipper is up. All my buttons are buttoned, my belt loops are in the right place, and my socks do match. And yeah, the executive board had a little fun last month when I nervously got dressed for an early morning meeting at the Four Seasons to defend my budget. And it could happen to anybody, but I inadvertently showed up wearing 2 belts. There was a logical explanation for it, but no one seemed to want to hear it. But I fixed that this time because when I packed, I only brought 1 belt with me to Fort Worth. Another thing I'm going to fix right now, for some reason, your Secretary Treasurer, Marvin Jolly, and Trey Bates, your president, have found some type of sadistic joy and see me get a little squirmish at the attention I've gotten since announcing my retirement. I had no idea that quitting the job was a license to haze somebody, but they have a great deal of fun doing that, and they especially like goading people out of their nice, comfortable chairs to get me a standing ovation just so I turn beet red. So I know there's already been several today, but we're going to fix that, guys. At the end of this speech, I want you to all join me in applauding yourselves for your dedication to our advocacy program. So there. I should be getting used to this by now. There have been a series of rather uncomfortable events. I've thanked the Political Involvement Council at their meeting in August. I thank the PAC at their incredible event last night. I thank the AEs at their June meeting where we actually made the announcement. And I have thanked at almost every turn the governmental affairs team. But I'm going to ask them all where they are to stand one more time. Leslie, Brandon, Daniel. Oh, there they. Guys, I would be absolutely nothing without them. They make me look better than I ever deserve. And they're my friends, they're my family, and they are truly the best in the business. I've also been in process of calling all the past chairmen to thank them for helping me through all of these years, each individually through their years. But in all these expressions of heartfelt gratitude, there's one person who has fallen through the cracks, and that's your chairman-elect, Cindy Bulla. But Cindy, I've been kind of depressed for this last year that I was not going to be a part of your year and seeing you prepare for it. And then it dawned on me, thanks to this wonderful new bylaws change, you take office December 1st. And I don't leave till December 31st, so we got 31 days to do some real damage. Absolutely. But Cindy, here's your problem. As is pointed out by Travis, I started December 1st, 1998. And I looked pretty good back then, too. It's been a long road. But the first person I met, in fact, the person who opened the door for me and helped me steady my load as I walked into the office was Charles McMillan, the chairman at that time. And we all know that Charles went on to be a legend in the real estate industry. And I had the privilege of serving with him for 31 days till he went out of office on January 1st. So no pressure. But I think it would be really cool if I bookend this career by serving 2 legendary chairmen for 31 days at the beginning and the end. And I think you're off to a really good start. Over the past couple of months, we've been in the process of finding my replacement. And for some really stupid reason, I agreed to work with this nationally recognized search firm to identify the characteristics of the job so that they could post a job description. The process has been, I don't know, it's like turning your body inside out and pouring out your heart, your mind, and your soul and letting a total stranger dissect it with a screwdriver. I mean, it has been excruciating. I volunteered for this thing. But one thing this nightmare has probably shown, I'm probably the least qualified person ever to have this position. But here I am, and on paper I don't look very good. But there are 3 intangible reasons I have lasted all these years, and you can't put them in a job qualification or necessary professional character traits. The first 2 are Travis Kessler and Benny McMahon. I became vice president in 2004. In 2010, Travis became the new CEO, replacing the legendary Benny McMahon, whom I'd had the privilege of working with for 11 years. Travis had the prerogative of bringing on his own team, and I completely understand that. But for some reason, he kept me on. I am sure there were times that decision was a regret, because I know I tested him to his wits' end with great consistency. But he always steadied my ship, helped me get the resources we needed to accomplish our goals. And he never even got angry, although he had every reason. Travis, it's been nothing but a joy and an honor to work with you and for the last 9 years. And where is, oh, there's Benny. Poor Benny had it a lot worse. December 1st, 1998, I walked into that office with great enthusiasm, carrying a box and meeting Charles McMillan and ready to start as the legislative director. 14 hours later, I took every bit of energy I could muster to get out of my car to walk back in my house, and my wife said this sort of obligatory and sarcastic, "How was your day, dear?" And I fell back on the couch and said, and I meant it, "I think I've died and gone to hell." The only thing good about the first day at that job, it was better than the second day. But over the next 11 years and several promotions, Benny helped me, talked me off the ledge on numerous occasions. And I remember tearing up at least 2 that I remember letters of resignation. But Benny, I think at this moment, I think it's appropriate to pay tribute to the late Bill Stinson. Of course, he was the source of all your gray hair and all of my anxiety those few years. But I remember so well you pulling me aside one day and said, "If you just get through all the demons, you're going to really learn something from this guy." And I did, and I learned that he loved this organization more than anybody in the world, and that rubbed off on me. As Lance Lacey said, no matter how frustrated he made you, you could cut him in 2 and you'd bleed realtor blue. As many of you know, throughout my career, I've had some really significant bosses as men and women. Some of them very famous and very big players on the national and international stage. I can say with all honesty, none of them hold a candle to Travis Kessler and Benny McMahon. I just hope I take with me some of their amazing values and their integrity. I said there were 3 intangibles for this job. The third reason is your mission is in my DNA. My ancestors' journey to the American dream of homeownership began in the middle of the 1800s. In Kentucky, where they knew the joy of owning their own property. After 2 bad crop failures, they lost. The government took their land. They said, "You can still live on it. We'll take our share of your crops. You can keep the rest," hence the term sharecropper. That idea was absolutely unacceptable to them, to live on their property but never have the privilege of owning it again. So they packed up what little they had and they walked to Texas. It was a journey that was very hard on them. Took the family matriarch died just a few hundred yards after they crossed the Sabine River into Texas. Another member of our family died in the Alamo. They did not care, as long as their descendants lived in a place where their property would not be readily taken from them. Fast forward just one decade, the first person from that generation who walked from Kentucky, was born in Texas, was my grandfather. For 20 years, about the same length of time I had this job, he laid railroad tracks, saving every dime he could, and my grandmother took in laundry, saving every dime she could, so that they could have their dream of buying a small farm. Something they finally did, but I think that would probably never happen if they lived where there was skyrocketing property taxes, a state income tax, real estate transfer tax, and a whole bunch of impact fees. It was just a small place of South Texas dirt, but to them it was heaven. And they rarely left that property because there were always eggs to collect and cows to milk and crops to tend to. I spent a lot of time there when I was growing up, and something very magical happened every single day. Before daylight, people started showing up looking for work. They hired everybody they possibly could, but when they couldn't hire them, they always said, please hang around or come back and have lunch with us. And they did. And there were two certainties about those lunches. First of all, nobody left their farm hungry, and nobody touched anything unless my grandfather blessed it. And it's been 45 years, but I still remember that same prayer he gave every day in a voice you could hear in the next county, and he always ended it by saying, and finally, dear Lord, thank you for this land you've entrusted us with. Help us to be great stewards of it and to share its bounty with all comers. Amen. That was their American dream. But regardless of the magnitude of their dreams, I doubt that any of my ancestors ever dared to dream big enough to think that one of their descendants would have the highest privilege, thanks to the Texas REALTORs, of walking into the Texas Capitol for 21 years, championing the same rights they were willing to and did die for. So now I come to the board of directors who make all of this happen. I cannot personally, effectively express my gratitude to you for the long-term vision and commitment to our mission of protecting the American dream of homeownership. Your cause is great, and over the last years, I have been amazed at the ways your mission has come under attack in the Texas Capitol and in local communities across the state. It is you who has made it possible for us to fight and always, was Daniel Gonzalez here? Along with Daniel Gonzalez, to fight and always win these battles. We win because you give us the ammunition through continued and sustained funding of our advocacy programs. When Benny McMahon offered me this promotion to Vice President September 5th, 2004, and in doing so, one of his most memorable comments was as he shook his finger at me. I actually wrote this down in my journal, and I looked it up the other day. He says, Mark, the absolute worst thing you can do to screw this up is to let this position go to your head. It has happened to your four predecessors. Don't let it happen to you. With that warning, each and every day, I've reminded myself that the power is not mine. It's yours. A few years ago, when I realized the PAC was starting to get to $4 million a year, and that was just the start, they weren't going anywhere, I started getting a little bit uncomfortable about the clout that this has been afforded to me. So that's when I came up with the idea of breaking new ground, which I really do hope is my legacy to the Texas REALTORs. The concept was simple: to take all of the power and prestige that you had given us in Austin and given it back to the local boards. After several years of trial and error, the concept became a reality. and the results have been phenomenal. At our board, and our boards and associations have embraced every breaking new ground recommendation, and a whole new bunch of words and phrases are now part of the governmental affairs lexicon. Phrases like early engagement are in, phrases like friendly incumbent are out. Local boards are now identifying candidates, elected officials at 5 levels, and that determines their funding. The staff recommendations now take a back seat to an empowered local board. Most importantly, we were able to untie the hands of our local boards so that they can determine when and at what level they can engage in campaigns. Independent expenditures, Lance, at all levels are now reality, and our public policy committees no longer are considered subcommittees of anything. But they are well-funded, standalone committees where the Realtor members are now given professional and expert tools needed to identify your public policy and legislative agendas. We gave all that power back to the local boards, and they are doing their job, finding candidates, fundraising at unheard of levels, and new legislative issues and issues mobilization campaigns have skyrocketed, and that's just a start. But you know what? I just dawned on me. I had eye surgery this year. No wonder I can't see this speech. Here we go. Okay. Now I know what I'm saying. But anyway, something unexpectedly happened. As we bundled up the local boards bundled up all that clout, repackaged it, and sent it back to us in Austin, which has only increased our prestige in Austin. So that is when I gave myself an even stronger tool to remind me of where the clout comes from, and adhere to Benny's warning about letting it go to my head. I thought when he said it, it would be no-brainer, but the prestige of the Texas Capitol continues to grow, and it's sometimes difficult to keep focus on you and your mission. That is where everywhere I go, I have an important message reminding me of who I serve. It is MATT 5:5. It's on the mirror in my bathroom, so I see it when I'm shaving in the morning and when I'm brushing my teeth in the afternoon or evening. It's on my computer screens, both at home and at work. It is on my steering wheel of my car, the back of my cell phone, on my front door, and the most used item in my home, the refrigerator door. It's a simple reminder, but it's absolutely necessary to do justice to you with all the tools you have given me and my team, and it stands for Matthew chapter 5, verse 5, which simply reads, "Blessed are the humble." Regardless of your religious beliefs, these are the words to live by when serving the Realtor organization. Your mission is the noblest of incentives and the greatest of causes. My all-time favorite character, fictional character, is a guy named George Bailey, and he's a central figure in somebody remembers him, and a central figure in my all-time favorite movie, It's a Wonderful Life. I probably watched it 100 times. Everyone who watches it cries at the end, but for me, I start tearing up when the credits roll at the beginning. And the most moving part of that film comes rather early when George Bailey is fighting a hopeless battle against Mr. Potter and the bank board. And with tears in his eyes, he says, tears in my eyes. Mindy, I'm glad I brought the Kleenex. Why shouldn't we want people to own our own homes? Homeowners make better neighbors, they make better customers, and they make better citizens. Why can't you see this? Everybody in this room sees it, and everybody in this room has a whole lot of George Bailey in you. Otherwise, you would not be here on Sunday morning. You would be attending your church or your synagogue, or be spending time with your family, your dog, or just preparing to go out and represent your customers and clients. But as leaders of this association, it is your responsibility to see that the people like me, you entrust to carry this burden, always remain humble to your cause. It is a cause that shapes the moral, social, political, and economic fiber of our state and nation, so it must never be compromised. We are now in the process of finding a person to take on this mantle and carry out your objectives in the Texas halls of power. I am confident in that search, But during this time, you must remain steadfast to see that this cause endures and the American dream of homeownership never dies. George Bailey learned at the end of his wonderful life, his wealth was not measured by the size of his bank account, but in his commitment to the greater good of his surroundings. By that standard, I consider myself an extremely wealthy man. This has never been a job for me, but a great and noble cause that began a century and a half ago on a Kentucky sharecropper farm and ended in the shadows of the Texas Capitol. With all my heart, thank you for letting me share in your mission, in your values for the last 2 decades. God bless the American dream. God bless the Texas Realtors. And God bless all the George Baileys out there. Thank you.